qualified as a first felony offender. Offenses: forcible rape, 3 counts; aggravated oral sexual battery, 3 counts. Sentencing date, May 3rd, 2001. Sentenced to a total of 40 years. Parole date, August 1st, 2021. Good time, May 26th, 2031. Full term, May 20th, 2038. Is this information correct, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Kelsey.
How you doing today, Mr. Davidson?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good. How old are you?
47.
How long have you been incarcerated?
24 years.
On a 40-year sentence.
Yes, sir.
What's your plans if you were to be successful today?
I
Where
plan
you gonna go? What you gonna do?
I'm currently going to my mother's home and the home that I own in Abita Springs, Louisiana. I'm going to be living there with her. My brother owns his own company driving trucks, like gravel trucks and everything, and I'm going to currently be working with him if I get out. That's where I'm going to be working at. But at the same time, I'm going to be using the skills I learned as an editor of this magazine to maybe do some freelance writing for local newspapers, or use some of the graphic design techniques I learned to maybe get on the internet and pitch some ideas I had and try to make me some extra money.
All right. Tell me, let me get, listen, it's been 24 years. It's awful crime. Crime was it's terrible. Tell me, what was your mindset back during these times? Were you on drugs? Did you have a mental health issue? Did you have some anger? What caused you to do this?
I was using drugs, and I think that's what contributed to lowering my inhibitions. I had been having negative thoughts of that nature for quite some time, and I was always able to find other things to do, take my mind off of it, or things like, or get out of that situation. But the more I drank and smoked, and I was in a high-risk situation, it got harder and harder for me to avoid committing this crime till I eventually hurt my children.
These are your stepchildren?
Yes, sir. And I was scared. I didn't have the courage to ask anybody for help. I didn't want to tell anybody what I was doing or what I did. I didn't know what to do. And that made it worse because I not removing myself from the situation, even though that's what I should have done, made it worse, and I committed the act more than once. And it's no child should ever have to go through that, because that's the worst crime a person could ever do.
So what? If you had those thoughts and feelings, and what have you done in all this time you've been down? I mean, what have you learned about the situation? Have you taken all the phases of sex offender?
I've taken all the phases of sex offender treatment BTG program, and during that program, I learned that the risk factors. I found my triggers: negative emotional state, high risk situation, and a lot of times I was in denial. I tried to believe I didn't have a problem, or told myself that when I knew I did. And through that program, I learned what I had done and why I did it. And later, I wound up getting enrolled in Making Changes for Good, which is a relapse prevention program. And that helped me to understand empathy and kind of put myself in the shoes or the place of the victim and try to understand exactly what they went through. It was hard, but that program made me actually face my problems and face it head on, and helped me to understand what I need to do to make sure it never happens again. And I took AA DNA. I've taught some classes to make sure that, to try to find out what role the alcohol and the drugs have played in it. And I've learned through that I'm stronger than I thought I was, but I still need help. And so, and I've done a lot, but it hurts.
So what are your triggers? What is causing you to?
Negative mind states, negative thoughts. And at the time I've had those thoughts for a while, and I was always able to remove myself from the situation or find other things to do where I don't commit a criminal act. But at
How
the
you
time,
gonna avoid having those thoughts moving forward, I guess is what I'm asking.
I really believe that the thoughts will probably still be there, but I've learned how to find other things to do to maybe not commit the criminal act. Talk to my family, hang with people that my support system. Don't put myself in a high risk situation. Don't put myself alone with children, if that makes sense. Anything I need to do to not make, I don't want another child to go through what they went through, and I don't want to go through the shame and guilt I'm feeling. I can't do that.
Have you ever had a mental health evaluation or follow up or what?
I think back in the parish jail in 1998, I had a competency hearing or something like that, but they didn't find anything at the time.
Mr. Kelsey,
Yes.
we need to pause the hearing for a little while. We lost internet downstairs, and Teresa and Maggie are both not in the room. So can y'all just cut off your cameras and mute for a little while, and then we'll let y'all know once we're back up, okay?
All right, you hear that? We're gonna pause for just a minute, okay?
Yes, sir.
And get the internet back going.
Yes, sir.
We're good. I think we're good. They lost you.
Yeah, they muted.
Yeah, they're all muted.
Oh my gosh. You know, this one is just. I'm in the hundreds of hearings of such cases that we've never seen someone come out and really seemingly answer every question. Just
So you've never been.
sincerity and honesty. I have to think Claire messaged this to me and said, you need to check this out.
All the hearings are on voice on YouTube too.
I mean, the word she uses, brutally honest, and I have to agree. I don't have, Richard had already listed this hearing as one that I should check out, but we have so many that I didn't get to it. So again, thank you for Claire for mentioning it. But I haven't seen it yet. This is the first time I'm watching it with you. If you're wondering about the glasses, I'm dealing with like a pink eye, and these are a little bit helpful for computer screen. So that's why I'm wearing it. What do you think? Do you think that it's all manipulation, or do you think that it's genuine and authentic? It's what's interesting is he got just one of the longer sentences that we've seen for these type of cases. Typically they get 10 years, 15, 20 is like the max. He has a 40-year sentence, 40. Let's see.
The hearing. Having some internet issues, but we'll just continue. We have the panel here, and we'll continue with the questions and go from there. So again, so you're just telling me that you've learned different techniques. You're not sure if the thoughts will still be there or not. You're just going to try to manage it, maintain as best you can.
and attend groups, talk to family.
All right, now your internet's freezing up on me. Is it just me? Yeah.
No, he's frozen.
All right, I think we got an internet problem at Rayburn now. Let's see if it comes back up. All right, can you hear us there at Rayburn or not?
Yes, sir, we hear you.
You froze up for just a minute, so all right, so we're good. So again, you're gonna handle it with talking to people, seeing folks, being involved in counseling. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
What about and then back to the mental health? You said you never had, so everything was good, no diagnosis of anything.
No, sir. Not that I'm aware of.
When's your last disciplinary write-up?
2009, I think.
Okay. And Warden, you have any input there for us?
Yes, sir, his last write-up was in 2009. Just give you, Bernard's our newspaper editor, been there since in the last 5 years, and he's been a tutor in the education department for the last 15 years. And he facilitated sex offender treatment after he graduated from it.
Okay. All right. All right, thank you. You have a question from Mr. Tony Marabella's got a question for you. Can she
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Davidson, I appreciate your honesty and appreciate everything that you've said. I've got some concerns, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that. You've been very frank with us and very honest with us about your concern that those thoughts might still be there and those problems may still be there. Tell me what you've learned about those thoughts. Tell me why it is what you've learned, why you have this sexual attraction for young people. I mean, your stepdaughters were 3, 4, and 7 years old, and you've been very honest with us. So I want to commend you for that. But you've also said, I think those thoughts are still going to be there. What have you learned through all of your taking of sex offender classes that causes this? I mean, is this a mental health problem? Is this something that you have an issue with? What can you tell me about that? Because, you've done good, but I'm just afraid right now, frankly, to let you out. You're talking about doing things on the internet. My goodness, that's a whole new ball game there. So tell me what you've learned about yourself and if you can explain why you have these urges. Did you freeze or? Yeah, I think he froze, huh?
Yeah, froze up again. We're going. You're right. There it is. Go ahead. Go ahead and start over again. We can hear you now.
Did you hear my question, Mr. Davidson?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and speak now.
Okay. I've always had these types of thoughts, but I've learned through BET, I've learned through sex offender treatment that these thoughts are things that it's a risk factor. It's a fetish. It's an attraction to children is something that is, how would I say it? Some people may call it a disease. I'm not. I've always tried to understand why me? Why did I have to have these thoughts? Why me? And no matter what I've went through and what I've learned, I just cannot stop the thoughts from coming. I don't get them all the time, but when they do, I've learned how to now say no and change my thoughts to something else and find other things to do, like read a book, go watch television, whatever I need to do to not even entertain those thoughts.
Mr. Davidson, again, I want to just commend you for your honesty in telling me that, because we don't hear that often from people as blatantly honest as you are. So my next question is, how do you plan on putting things in place so you don't have those thoughts? See, my concern is when you have those thoughts and you're in a position to act on them, it's too late.
Right.
How are we gonna, what are you gonna put in place to make sure you're not in a position to act upon those thoughts? That's part of our job, to make sure you don't find yourself in that position. And frankly, I'm not sure how to do that. Now, has your training suggested ways of you to be able to put things in place so you don't find yourself in that situation?
Yes, it has. What it's taught me is that the best way to avoid a situation like that is not to even put yourself in a high risk situation.
Okay.
Is not even let myself be alone with any children. When they always have my parents or somebody around with me, never go to a grocery store by myself or stuff like that. I plan to honestly never commit something like this again. I don't want to see another child go through what they went through.
I believe you sincerely.
I don't want to feel the guilt and the shame that I went through. And I'm not going to put nobody else through this. Whatever I need to do, that's what I'm going to do. If I got to stay at home, go to work, keep track record of where I've been or where I'm going, that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going through this again. I'm not putting no one through this again. That's.
Have you discussed with anyone what's available on the outside for you? You know, like alcoholics have AA meetings and NA meetings. Have you looked into any sort of sex offender group therapy sessions or anything like that you would have a sponsor for? Have you looked into anything like that?
I've thought about it, and I've got someone to look into some things around the Covington, the Beta Springs area, but I don't have family members. My mother is not really mobile, and my brother, he works a lot, so I never got them to go find out where is an easier location for me to get to within walking distance, because I probably won't have transportation right now. So I'm gonna need to go somewhere. I want to be able to go somewhere, and I'm open to any and all suggestions.
And I'm also worried about this computer business you're talking about too, because there are a lot of temptations on the computer that kind of gets our minds going in the wrong directions also.
Yes.
Mr. Davidson, I want to say I'm not sure exactly how this is going to turn out for you today, but I do appreciate your honesty. Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Davidson, would you like to make a statement on your behalf?
Yes, I would. I've been incarcerated now for 24 years, and throughout those 24 years, no matter what programs I took, no matter how much I've taught people, no matter how many leadership classes I've taken, I've always, and I probably always will, live with the guilt and shame of what I did. That I think that's going to be with me, but I don't ever want to go through this again. I'm a mature person now. I was a man-child back then, but that doesn't excuse what I did. What I did was wrong. It has always been wrong. Those children didn't deserve that. They trusted me. My family trusted me. I should have never even allowed myself to even attempt to commit something like that. But I did. And I've spent my whole incarceration trying to find ways to strengthen my mind, using every tool available to me to make sure that if a chance, an opportunity ever came for me to get out of prison, I would never do nothing like this again. That's it.
All right, thank you, sir. Panel prepared to vote. I'll vote first. Bernard, I do appreciate your honesty and your candidness with us this morning. Appreciate everything that we've discussed and talked about. You know, you have done a lot of good things. You've done, is this your first parole hearing?
Yes, sir.
You've done a lot of good things. You have, you know, listen, we have to take everything into consideration. We have to take the crime, take the time you've spent, take the work you've done. We have to take what you can't control. We have to take the victims' impact statements. We have to take the law enforcement statements. And so you do have some significant opposition. You have law enforcement opposition. You have victim opposition. I know this is something that you're still working with. This is your first time to hear parole, but today I'm just not ready to grant you parole. My vote will be to deny you parole. I think you're right there, headed in the right direction. I would keep working and work on those feelings, figure out some ways to cope, some plans, a better plan, maybe for you on the outside. But again, you've done well and you're right there. Keep working and reapply when you can. But my vote today is to deny your parole for law enforcement opposition and victim opposition. Mr. Marabello.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Davidson, I've been on this board now for 2 years, and I've got to say, this is one of the toughest decisions I've had to make, because I believe that you've accomplished a lot. I believe that you've looked into your heart and you've seen what the problem is, and you don't want it to happen again. And you've been very honest to me, and that tells me you are on the right direction. But I'm very concerned about the plan that you have. I think you're moving in the right direction. I think that you need to get a concrete plan. There are groups out there that you can go to, that you can get a sponsor and those kinds of things. You need to have that in place before you get out. You're close. You really are close. And I have vacillated 2-3 times on this decision because you are a changed man, but your honesty today about what your feelings are has to be made, and I'm glad you said it, because otherwise, if we don't do something about that, you'll be right back in prison again. I would encourage you to work with whoever there might be on the inside or the outside, to find some group setting that you can have a plan for, similar to what you've learned in AA and all of the substance abuse things. You're darn close, Mr. Davidson, and I just can't vote today to allow your parole, because I'm too worried about what might happen if you don't have the proper plan out there. So thank you so much for your honesty. Stay honest to all of us and yourself, and see if you can find that plan, because there's one out there that can help you. You want it and you need it. So good luck, keep working hard, and hopefully next time, if I'm still around when you come back and you've got a plan, I'll likely vote to let you out. But today I just can't do it. Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you.
Your vote is?
Mr. Davidson, I too, what they say about one of the hardest things in life is that you go through it and then you get to teach it. And I think that you have really benefited from having to teach the sex offender classes. And I just commend you on your hard work. But I'm just not willing today either. I encourage you to find out about the sex offender parole conditions. I don't know if they have that around there, but but try to find out about the conditions that you will be under when you get on parole. And then you would know that the internet and all that stuff, you're not going to be allowed to do. Certain jobs, you have minor victims. Your life is going to be forever changed. As long as you live in Louisiana, you're not going to, there are certain jobs you can't have.
Right.
Certain time on the internet you can't do. But you don't know that. You hadn't had the opportunity, you had to know that. But begin to look at those supervision requirements. And like Mr. Marabello said, try to build up some support. So that somebody can say, look, if y'all let him out, I'll be here for him. I'll make sure he get here. I'll make sure he get there. Just do what you can to get that. But today, my vote is to deny as well. The age of the victims said it went on for several years. That's concerning for me. The age of the victims, the nature of the offense, and the law enforcement opposition. Those are my reasons for denial. Best wishes to you, sir.
All right, you have 3 votes to deny. Today, your parole's been denied. Good luck.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
So how do you unpack this? For one, I'll start with the takeaway of the board clearly understands in this scenario, because of his honesty, that they can't risk paroling him, because how can you guarantee, right, that he's not going to offend again? And I'll just say it that, yes, how can you risk paroling anyone who is locked up for doing this? How can you, because if he would have said something different, if he would have said, I just don't have those thoughts anymore. I only did it because I was on the pipe. Then they would have said, oh, that's great. Oh, that's great. You've served a lot of time. You've done well. Let me parole you. I mean, is that what it's coming down to? Is it really coming down to what they say in a parole hearing? How is it that there's an acknowledgement of the clear danger he is to society because he admits that he has an issue, yet judges and district attorneys don't have that same clarity? Is it really all depending on what he says? It makes no sense. And he got one of the longer sentences we've seen, 40 years. He served 24 years of it. 2038 is his full-time date. This hearing took place in 2022, about a year ago. I mean, how just seeing this should make you only say, how is it that anyone gets shorter sentences? How is it that anyone who does these crimes, we've seen 5-year sentences, 8-year sentences. We've seen house arrest until they violated. I do appreciate Mr. Marabell saying it's the toughest case he had seen in the 2 years. But to me, it is very clear that you can't allow him to get out. But here's the thing where I step back and say, wait a minute, I'm still not going to get pulled into whatever it is he's saying, because remember, he married a woman with 3 children. He made the decision that he knew he had this, but he said, not sure to call it a mental illness or not, but he knew that he had this problem, and he married a woman with 3 children in his desired age range. Let that sink in. And then he didn't do it just once or twice. He did it for at least a couple of years. Let that sink in. He might have been honest in this parole hearing. At least the most honest that we've seen. At least the most transparent, if you don't want to go to call it honest. But he still did everything that they all do, which is put in all of that work, all that effort to woo and seduce a mother of children. Why? For their children. To then do everything that he would have done to keep this going on. What we hear is a 3, a 4, and a 7-year-old. A 3, a 4, and a 7-year-old. Think about that. For a couple of years, he was doing this. He talks about saying, I always wondered, why me? Why me? Why is this disease? And again, it seems honest. But at the same time, he did everything in his power to give himself access to his victims. He did everything in his power to make sure that he could do that to them for as long as he could before getting caught. And there's no way this was his first attempt, this first offense. It was simply the first time he got caught. You know, he said he had to take empathy program so that he could learn to understand. And then he corrected himself to try to understand what they might be going through. Again, it just seems like he was almost like nailing this interview. But again, if you have to take an empathy program to try to understand what, then maybe he still has no idea. And he's just really become a master at manipulation, which is what he is. But the bottom line is whether he's being true to us and being most honest or just an expert manipulator, I would only argue, sadly, that it's even the more reason you can never let him out, because, man, he would be the most dangerous of all. And that's scary. But he's the facilitator, right? I mean, at this stage, and I don't know, you think he's going to go back and facilitate? If you want to give a tip to any of your buddies, the one thing you will learn is, I mean, you can't admit it, right? Or he has to have some type of plan, some type of AA plan, some type of, for them to feel comfortable to let him out. And even then, it's like, can you imagine? It would just be a ticking clock, in my opinion. In Louisiana, they do have, we have seen it a couple times. You could volunteer for chemical castration and other things to shorten your sentence. And it's not a guarantee still that you won't reoffend, but you would think that that's something he should volunteer for, because how is any child safe? But this is why we do this, because we all have to see what we're dealing with. And with that,